Welcome to the karmic chain of cause and effect. This is Book of Light teaching, and we talk here about how everything came into life and how everything will disappear again, to reawaken to new life. And there we already have united creationism and evolutionism. So the teaching of a creator, or those people who believe there is no creator, there's only evolution. In truth, there are both. And therefore, the Book of Light unites religion and science, philosophy, all in one. And when we talk about the chain of causality, the karmic chain of causality, everything must have had a cause which leads to an effect. If everything has a cause, a 5-year-old is permitted to ask what was before that cause. And if you cannot respond to the satisfaction of the boy or girl asking this question, then your thesis or knowledge is incomplete. Scientists talk about a Big Bang, and they fail to explain to us what was before that Big Bang. We have a genius scientist, Hawking, who was always tortured, you could say, by that question and problem. And he said, or he assumed so-called pre-universe. But this is just as illogical as somebody who says there is a beginning. Because if there was so-called pre-universe, then you are again permitted to ask what was before that pre-universe. The answer to that question is so simple, dear friends. In the same way simple as scientists want to make it complicated. There is no beginning and no end of a universe. There is a periodical reawakening out of the source of the ever-to-be unknown into manifestation, and a return to that source. Book of Light teaches that one period, or Manvantara, or Mahamanvantara, one cosmic period of manifestation is 311 trillion, 40 billion years. And when you see the PDF in under that video here, you can click on it, and you have over 4,500 pages of the Book of Lights. So, there is a reawakening out of the ever-to-be unknown. Everything, so teaches the Book of Light, is uncreated, timeless, eternal, and manifests periodically. There's no creator God behind that. Yet there is a creation. While in manifestation, in hierarchical order, the beings supply themselves with different vestures. In the Bible, these beings are called Elohim. We call them Manasaputras and so forth. So there is a creation process, but you, as being itself, or we call it monad, you were never created. This is why you can never die or perish. That to which you cling, that can perish. Or it can change form. And in the same, or to the intention or intensity that you identify yourself with that fleeting form, you think you are that, and you suffer when the change comes. In our example here, for instance, for yourself in form of death. So you are not dying. That to which you cling, that dies. Yeah. And it doesn't even die, it just changes form. The Book of Light teaches 3 things are timeless, eternal, uncreated, ever existing. What the religions claim of their God, that he was always there, we say of everything. 3 things. All beings, the source, and root matter or primal matter. These 3 interact periodically. That leads to the appearance or to the reappearance and disappearance of the entire universe over and over and over again. But you can detach from it. You can escape that cosmic wheel, that samsara, which is more or less a spiral movement. That samsara of reincarnation. The entire universe, with everything in it, is the reincarnation of that universe prior to it. And when this universe disappears, then everything rests again. You find that in the Bible when it says God rests for 7 days. It's just a symbolic definition of it, allegorical. And after that period of rest, everything appears again. So therefore, there is, in one sentence, the truth revealed as follows. Everything leaves unconsciously the source and returns consciously to it. That's it. That's all. Of course, that from the moment of reawakening to the moment of disappearing, 311,040,000,000,000 years. For now, dear friends, I will not proceed as I maybe should in explaining the universe, the entire universe with everything in it, and the reincarnative process. That is all written in the Book of Light that you find here at no expense. It's a PDF, you can read it. But I will, for now, be concerned with the human body, with the human being, which is, according to the teaching, the 4th step. Spirit manifests, or the monad as we call it, which has little to do with the spirit of church or of religion, because that spirit is not the being itself. It's still a very fine material veil, vahana, upadhi. But I'm talking about the being itself, the monad, leaving periodically the source, falling into material world, surrounding itself with etheric matter. Where does the matter come from? It's a subdivision of the pre-existing Mula Prakriti, root matter. Aided in that process by other hierarchies who also left the source, and whose karma it is and was to supply us with vehicles who later condensed to bodies, so that we can live in this world, in this transient, and therefore always to suffering-leading world. Dear friends, but before I go into detail in these things, let's see the fourth step. The being manifests as mineral, plant, animal, man. That's where it is now. That means we have been already mineral, plant, and animal. And since we leave the source in different hierarchical order, that leads to the different mankind of today. It is that simple. It is so simple, in the same way like science wants to make it difficult, so we can support them by constantly new funding money. You can spare a lot of money, dear scientists, if you click on the PDF and study the Book of Light. So I jump from the so-called Big Bang, which per se does not exist as a first Big Bang, but it is a reawakening, a periodical reawakening. I make a quantum leap to the human being and the chain of reincarnation, the karmic chain of cause and effect. And you are bound on that chain since you were mineral, plant, animal, and now you are the being in the human kingdom. This is the chain of causality concerning your life. You as a person, you who are attached to something, who identify yourself as something that you basically are not. Otherwise you wouldn't be afraid of dying. Something dies that you are basically not, but to which you cling. Why? Because it brings you joy, it brings you happiness. Of course, it brings you also suffering. Is there something beyond that? If there's only this life, there's no need to continue talking. Then I would say, live as you want to live. You know, these YOLO people. You know, one life only. You know. Then you can be as good and as bad as you want to. Why bother? Why have any ethic or responsibility? You're dead after that, if there's only one life. I would be the first teacher to teach you the greatest debauchery, the greatest sense enjoyment that you can imagine. If there would only be one life, then we don't have to go to talk any longer. So for those of you who are still there, I say you are chained to the chain of cause and effect, chain of causation, chain of reincarnation. As you sow, you shall reap, life after life. And that leads to the first statement of the Book of Light, counting for a solar angel, for Brahman, Krishna, the highest being in manifestation. Life is suffering. To live is to suffer because of the transiency of everything. A transiency of which we are not so aware when we are young, and then it seems forever young, forever young. Then comes the first pimples, not the pimples of puberty, but of age. And then comes old age and death, if you live that long. And your desire for life, at the moment of death and even before, accumulated during life, leads to your reincarnation. Then you could say, hey, wonderful. So I come back over and over again. The Book of Light teaches you how to A, wisely come back, to suffer as little as possible. B, how not to come back, and to attain the end of suffering. The choice is yours. Every creature, from the first moment it exists until its death, only lives because it wants to live. Now you could say, I didn't want to live in these circumstances. You say I live because I want to live. That was not my desire, to live in poverty and misery with parents who don't love me, always in misery and so forth, No, you didn't want this, but you caused it. Because you were not aware of the consequence of your acting, of your activities, of your thinkings, of your emotions. The Book of Light teaches you how to think wisely. So you avoid, if you want reincarnation, a painful reincarnation. It's up to you. And of course, there are people who understand this teaching in a little book that I wrote, Divine Message from the True God. After they read that book, they said, I don't need to read the 4,500 handwritten pages of the Book of Light. I know now how I can escape this insane world ruled by insane people. Wonderful. But there are people who do not want to escape suffering and attain nirvana. Or they only want to escape this world, or not unless they know how the machine works. That's taught in the Book of Light. Go to the PDF, it's free. That is taught in the Book of Light. Then you can decide, you want to be part of the machine? Or you say, no, I understood now. I will not be part of this machine. I want to return where I came from, and the Book of Light teaches you will return there anyway, at the relative end of time, because time is nothing but the awareness of transiency. So if we return anyway, what's the big deal? Well, it spares you a lot of suffering. And many people return until having attained, or before having attained liberation. The wheel of life and death is a wheel of suffering. Although there are wonderful, we'll talk about that. There are wonderful things, there are sense happiness and pleasures, no doubt. If they wouldn't exist, nobody would like to be in this world. There are pleasures of the senses. But we'll see if our judgment about these pleasures maybe also does not lead to the conclusion that we are talking about suffering. Let's see. Every existence is caused by will. And what we call harmony with this will causes our happiness, and everything hindering it causes suffering, basically. Impeded will. Suffering is impeded volition, impeded will. No? So now a bank robber, somebody who robs a bank, and he succeeds in it, he is happy. He robbed $1 million, he went to Hawaii or somewhere, nobody finds him, he does not go to jail, he lives happily ever after. True, it happens. Oh, it happens more than you think, more often. But he cannot escape his karma. So in the next life, he may end up in jail for something he didn't do. And he said, I'm innocent. There is nothing like innocence in the world. Nothing. At least, or unless you are a liberated being, then yes, no doubt. So what then is happiness and is suffering? What is the final analysis, dear friends? It reveals the extent to which the will of the individual is able to maintain and effectuate itself. When you grasp that, then you will see that every act of will is impeded in any moment, at every moment. You may argue now, what about when my will is fulfilled? Even if this happens, the consequences at length turn around against yourself. Against yourself. Latest, when that which made you happy will die. And it will die. It will waste away. It will suffer shipwreck. Thus it happened throughout immeasurable times, dear friends. You cannot escape this arising and passing away. Inside the world of appearances, impossible. You can escape it if you go beyond the world of appearances, but then you would have to drop your desire for all sense activities. Oh my God, then I'm dead. You say, no, you're not dead. You just are there without desire. You could say, oh, that's boring. I want to live with desire. What is it that I get in return when I drop all that? True peace. A peace of which the normal, ordinary person has no idea what it is, just in its first step even. In its first steps. It is a going inside, always inside, always inside. Of course, interrupted by failures, by falling, by this and that. It depends to your state of attachment. Welcome to the Book of Light, which teaches you to rethink everything that you thought for 150 billion years, because this is already as long as you are here, maybe, in this period of cosmic manifestation. You were taught, and even now in schools you are taught to manifest yourself in this world and to do this, to that, to become this, to that. We teach. You are persona non grata on terra incognita. You are not welcome here. Otherwise, you could stay. But you're not permitted to stay. You're pushed out over and over again, life after life. This is the shocking truth for those who have ears to hear, eyes to see, and a brain to think. There is no life. There is only death. Nature could also be called mortur, natura mortura. Everything you see is wasting away. It's in a dying process. Birth is the beginning of a death process, of a dying process, and death is the end of it. And your desire brings you back. And again you want to die, because there is no life. Although we will use the term life now in these topics concerning Book of Light and reincarnation and so forth.
Man should not rule over man. Let knowledge rule again. The Book of Light, Book of Books, and Savior of mankind. Aum. Politicians and religion are the fall of man. We don't need no institutions and no government. All we need is that which once united us all. Let the angels' teaching be your guiding star. It is the book of light, the book of light and love. With the book of light, you're guided from above. We don't need no holy scriptures, no Bible and Quran. We have that where they all come from, in our very hearts. We are the new generation of innocence and peace. Knowledge is our leader, the truth shall set you free. It is the book of light, the book of light and love. With the book of light, you're guided from above. Now we're just a few, but soon we shall be living in a world of peace. With the book of light, the book of light shall be the book of light, the book for you and me. And in the darkest hour of Kali Yuga, when the world is burning left and right, there is a pillar of hope, and it is called the Book of Light. It is the Book of Light, the Book of Light and love. With the Book of Light, you're guided